And I don't know if there's someone out there tonight who feels like you are beyond rescue. If you feel like you have betrayed God in some way, I know I have many times. And I know somebody who felt exactly the same way. And this person that I'm going to be reading about, he lived a long time ago, but he had no excuse for his betrayal of Jesus. He had been with him for 3 years. Jesus was his best friend. And Peter was ready to die for him, he said. He was ready to give his life for Jesus. Instead, remember what happened. Peter was the first one out of there. He was the first one he wanted to save his own skin, you know. He wanted to save himself. And I feel like I've done that so many times, but there is such a word of hope for us in the Gospels after that story, because the story doesn't end there. It's just the beginning, right? It's just the beginning of the story. So I want to take us back. Jesus has been crucified, and he has resurrected as well. But Peter and the disciples are so confused and disconsolate and maybe even angry. And they've returned to fishing, which we understand as fishermen. Do you see them out there laboring all night with the lights blazing and the 2 boats coordinating the nets, haul after haul? Nothing. Not a single fish to sell or cook for their own breakfast. Their utter destitution on the water that night is a mirror image of their souls. They have nothing. They can catch nothing. They cannot even catch a minnow on their own. Whatever skills they thought they had were not enough. And they remember another night when this happened 3 years ago. When it all started, they all think of it, but no one speaks. What's the point? Just before morning breaks, just before they give up, a man calls to them from shore. Who is it? Can it be? Hesitant, they do what he says. Nets dropped on the other side again. And in one impossible moment, their nets are full of the biggest fish they've ever seen. Don't they know this pattern? A man speaks, and out of nothing, out of dearth and failure, explodes this crazy, unending abundance. Peter sees him clearly now. He throws on his clothes and leaps into the sea. This time, he thrashes toward the Lord instead of begging him to leave. All the men around the fire, now it crackles with a homey warmth on the sand. The fish lie in baskets, ready to be taken to the market. This is the 3rd time Jesus has come to them, but they cannot speak. They're more confused than ever. Jesus was tortured and brutally executed, and now he's alive, filling our nets again, filling our stomachs. Abundance still? Even after death? What is this? The food is nearly gone now. The fire settles. A plume of smoke follows the wind and hovers over one cluster of men, then another. Then Jesus speaks. Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Peter startles. Jesus, sitting on the other side of the embers, looks straight at him. His face is quiet and kind. Simon Peter looks around to see what Jesus means. He looks at the sea, the boats, his best friends, the fish on the sand waiting to be sold. He blinks, dazed. He knows the truth now. None of this is his. None of this can feed him. Then he looks back. Yes, Lord, you know that I love you, Peter stammers. This is the first time he's spoken to the master since that night. Peter pants with relief. Jesus blinks, smiles at him, tilts his head and asks again, "Do you love me?" Peter freezes. Jesus isn't asking, "Will you ever turn from me again? Will you ever make a mistake again?" And his question is for me as well, because I was there too that night. Do you love me? But Jesus asks already knowing the answer. He knows Peter's mind and heart already. He knows my heart already, but Peter, distrusting himself, does not know until it bursts from him. "Lord, you know that I love you." And saying it, Peter knows he loves this now risen Messiah enough, even this time, to die for him. And he will. Peter will die for the name and the sake of Jesus years from now. But now, one last time, the only question that matters. "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He asks in a low voice with unwavering eyes. Peter flinches. Why doesn't Yeshua believe him? "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." He nearly shouts it this time, and just as he speaks, he hears it. I hear it. Do you hear it? 3 questions, 3 answers. Is it possible? Is it possible that his every denial is now forgiven, covered by love, by Jesus' love for him, and incredibly, by his own love for Jesus, his own small, limited human love? Our tiny love is enough then? Peter would never forget this exchange. He would go on to write to the early church and to all believers after, "Above all, love each other deeply, for love covers a multitude of sins." This is the good news. Right there around that fire, Peter is forgiven of his faithlessness, his selfishness, his fear. And I am as well, and every one of us who has ever run away from the one who is our very life. Because this is the truth of following Jesus. When Jesus said, "Come, follow after me," it also meant that he would come after us. We have nothing to offer him. We stumble, we faint, we run the other way, and still he comes after us. He wants us, he loves us, he does not let us go. But Jesus is not done. This is not just about us. Every declaration of Peter's love is met with a charge. Feed my sheep. Feed my lambs. Take care of my sheep. So, Peter's love is enough. And this love has work to do out in the world. As we have been fed, as we have been forgiven, let us feed others. Others where? Everywhere. Later, Jesus commands, go into the whole world. Can this be? I want to protest, say back to Jesus, do you know how weak we are? How wavering our faith? How limited our love? Are you really trusting us? How can we do this? And I know the answer has already been given. Through the fish, through the wine at the wedding, through the bread on that hillside, and in so many other ways. He is the God who takes whatever we bring to him, even when it's only destitution. Amen. Amen. He takes our tiny faith, our 2 small fish, our very human love, and he multiplies it beyond measure. God will make your love enough. But he has done more than I could have imagined that day in the church basement when I raised my hand and said, yes, Jesus, I give you my life. Please change my story. And he has. He has led me into a new land I could never have imagined or reached on my own. A place where a father and a mother can be loved and forgiven, where a marriage can rise from the ashes again and again, where a mother sacrifices for her son in the skiff, where a ragged, wounded family learns to reconcile, where an unloved daughter becomes a beloved daughter of the King. This is a holy place. This is heaven. This is God with us. God with us in all of it. In the storms, in the fish, in the doubt, in all the seas. I am no longer afraid or alone. Jesus is calling every one of us. Every one of us who has failed, every one of us who thinks their story is over. Do you hear? Do you love me?
Come follow me.
Do not be afraid.
Your story is only beginning.
Your story is only beginning.
Your story is only beginning.